Hello and welcome. Today we're diving deep, and I mean really deep, into the theological weight packed into just one verse from the Quran's 19th chapter, Surah Maryam. We are going to unpack the layers of meaning around divine justice, mercy, and the incredibly profound question of who gets to speak on the Day of Judgment. So let's get right into it.
Now, everything we're about to explore comes straight from this detailed scholarly commentary. Think of it as our roadmap. It's our guide for dissecting the intricate arguments and the theological layers of this one powerful verse. We're going to follow its lead, piece by piece.
So here's how we're going to break it all down. First, we'll tackle the massive question of intercession. Then, we'll dig into the very specific conditions for who even gets to speak. After that, we'll look at the witnesses, and some of these are going to surprise you. We'll then picture the gathering of souls, and finally, we'll tie it all together by understanding the role of divine mercy.
All right, so the commentary kicks things off with a huge question, one that's absolutely central to theology about the end times. On the Day of Judgment, when everyone is standing accountable for their deeds, can anyone at all, step in and speak for someone else?
To get to the bottom of this, the source points us to other key verses, and this one from Surah Taha is absolutely critical. It basically lays down the law. You see, intercession isn't some open mic night. No way. It's an incredibly rare exception, and it's governed by two strict, divine conditions.
So we have to get really precise here. Words matter a great deal in this discussion, and the source text is very specific about what intercession truly means. Getting this definition right is the key to unlocking everything else.
The term in Arabic is shafa'ah, and this isn't just about speaking up. It is the profound, serious act of pleading directly with God for another person when everything is on the line. Which, of course, brings us to the most important question: who could possibly have this ability?
And this, right here, is the absolute heart of the matter. The commentary could not be any clearer on this point. No one, not a prophet, not an angel, no one has some built-in right to intercede. It's not a right at all. It's a privilege. It is a permission, and it's only granted if and when God wills it.
Okay, so if it's all about getting permission, the next obvious question is, well, how do you get that permission? The commentary lays out a very specific requirement, what it calls a covenant with God.
So it's basically a two-part process. First, a person has to have established what's called an ad, a covenant, with God. You can think of this as a lifetime of sincere faith and righteous deeds. But, and this is so important, even that is not enough. On the day itself, the most merciful must still grant explicit, final permission to speak.
And the result of this is just incredibly stark. The source paints a picture of two completely separate realities. On one side, you have those with the covenant, who might be granted a voice. And on the other, those without it, who possess absolutely no power of intercession at all. Their pleas just aren't heard. It's a completely binary situation. This leads us into a really fascinating part of the commentary. If some people can speak, who else is testifying on that day? Who are the witnesses that are called?
And this is where things get truly mind-bending, because the source explains that it's not just about people testifying for or against other people. The scope of who and what bears witness is just vast and incredibly profound. Let's look at the actual list.
Just look at the scale of this. You've got the witnesses you might expect, right? The prophets, the angels, but then the commentary points out that the very earth we walked on will give testimony. And maybe most chilling of all, our own bodies, our hands, our feet, our very skin will speak out and bear witness to our actions. There is literally nowhere to hide from the truth.
So, once all the witnesses have spoken, what does that scene of the gathering itself look like? The commentary describes this immense assembly of every soul that has ever lived, but it's not one big, undifferentiated crowd.
The imagery the source uses here is just so incredibly powerful. On one hand, you have the righteous, the muttaqim, who are brought forward as an honored delegation. But then you have the guilty, the mujrimim, who are described as being driven like a thirsty herd. The specific Arabic term used is rirdan, driven towards their punishment. The contrast couldn't be more absolute.
And this universal assembly, this event, has a specific name in Islamic theology, hashr. It's that moment when all of humanity, from the very first person to the very last, is gathered in one single place to face judgment.
So this brings us to our final piece of the puzzle, and honestly, it might be the most crucial. We've talked about strict rules, absolute accountability, these sharp divisions between groups. So you might be wondering, where does mercy fit into all this?
Well, notice the name for God that's used over and over in the verses the commentary analyzes. Ar-Rahman, the most merciful. This is not an accident. The source really stresses that using this specific name, a name that signifies a vast, all-encompassing mercy, right in the middle of a discussion about judgment, is incredibly significant.
And here it is. This is the key takeaway. The ultimate authority in this whole scene of judgment, the one who sets the rules, the one who gives permission, is identified first and foremost as the most merciful. This means justice isn't some separate concept from mercy. It actually flows directly from his mercy.
And this is the beautiful conclusion the commentary arrives at. That small exception, that tiny sliver of a chance for someone to speak on another's behalf, it isn't a loophole in the system of justice. It is the system. It's mercy itself, woven directly into the very fabric of divine accountability.
And so, we're left with this incredibly powerful idea to reflect on. The source doesn't present justice and mercy as these two opposing forces. It shows them as two sides of the same divine reality. So the real question isn't about which one wins out in the end, but rather, how do they coexist so perfectly in complete and total harmony?